Hey guys, it's Nate here, and today we got something pretty special for you all. What you're about to watch is a 3-part live workshop that we did in my community, and it was led by one of my co-founders at TrueHorizon. He's the CEO, and his name's Milan. This workshop was broken down into 3 parts. Part 1 was scoping and discovery, Part 2 is project management, and Part 3 is the modern sales pipeline. Don't have to watch it all at once. Bookmark it, save it for later, come back and use this as a resource as we actually go behind the scenes of what TrueHorizon does and how we actually were able to secure such a large deal. And yeah, hope you guys find this one valuable. I'll see you in there. Yeah, thanks for hopping in, everyone. The way that this session today is going to work is I'm pretty much just going to hand it off to Milan here in a minute. He'll do an intro, and then we'll get started. He has a presentation prepared for us. But what we're going to do at the end, since you guys are all here live, we're going to have a few special things for you guys. One of them will be a discounted link for a consulting session with Milan. So if you kind of like what you heard today and you want to book some time with him to talk about, your business or just pick his brain on some other stuff, you can book in a consulting call with him at a discounted rate. And we're also going to give you guys our sort of official discovery call framework, which Milan will probably touch on a little bit today, but you'll get access to the full PDF that goes into some more detail there about the way that we conduct our discovery calls. So we've got that. And then also we have 3 Appify. We also have 3 Appify codes to give away, which will be a $50 code, a $30 code, and a $20 code. So we'll be giving those away near the end of the session as well. So super for this session. But yeah, I'm pretty much just going to go ahead and pass it off to Milan to do a quick intro. We started working together back in January, and that's also when we partnered up with Tyler as well. So 3 of us are co-founders at TrueHorizon AI, which is super exciting. So yeah, Milan, I'll hand it over to you and go ahead and kick us off with a quick intro.
Sweet. Yeah, well, Nate, really appreciate that. What's going on, everyone? Appreciate everyone for hopping on. Thanks for your time today. Nate, just want to say, really appreciate the opportunity and thanks for having me here. I know everyone loves the community. I've seen a lot of positive feedback, so awesome to be here. Yeah, so like Nate said, my name is Milan. I'll give a quick introduction. So I ran a data infrastructure agency for about 2.5 years prior to co-founding TrueHorizon with Nate and Tyler. So I took tools like Databricks, Datadog, Snowflake off the shelf and implemented those for businesses. Back in October, November, figured I should pivot almost entirely into AI because the value prop of having a robust data infrastructure was rapidly shifting from it's a nice to have to it's a necessity for AI strategy. And so made that switch over. We co-founded the company, like Nate said, in January. Since then, basically just been on a rocket ship. We've done over any enterprise and SMB implementations. Got a lot of deal flow coming in, a lot of projects being shipped. We've grown now to I think eight or nine full-time people, and so it's been a pretty sweet ride. And so yeah, I guess I will go ahead and share my screen. We can jump into the reason why we're all here, which is not my life story. It is for this deal that we scoped and sold. And so, yeah, this presentation will basically be a comprehensive breakdown of how we scoped and sold this project, basically from start to finish. It was with a small to mid-sized insurance company based in the U.S., and we're going to go over essentially everything. One of my kind of key things that I want to make sure I'm doing today is just adding as much value as possible. And so I think a large part of that is answering people's questions. So if you have any questions, I encourage you to take notes on anything. I'm gonna try to not talk for too long, so we can get to people's questions. But yeah, with that, Nate, if that sounds good, I guess I can jump into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and get started.
Sweet, let's do it. So yeah, we'll start off quick agenda. So for today's workshop, again, focus mainly on how we scoped and sold the project. So quick overview on the deal. We'll talk about the sales cycle. So it was a 9-week sales cycle from the initial contact to sign contract. We'll talk about high level the system scope. That's going to be more so next week's workshop, like what we actually sold. But we'll talk about pain points and things like that, how we actually scoped it out. And then a detailed breakdown of the actual deal pricing structure. I know that's probably on a lot of people's mind. How to price these things is still an evolving field that we have yet to fully operationalize. We have a few different models that we can talk about. So yeah. So let's hop into it. Quick overview here on the deal. So again, 211K plus enterprise AI system for insurance automations. So including things like underwriting, policy endorsements, some different chatbots, both internal and customer facing, as well as some other, basic process optimization flows. Again, the client is small to mid-sized US based insurance company. The deal that we had scoped out is a multi-agent, multi-month deployment. So essentially, we are on a monthly retainer for a given amount of time. Each time we deploy an agent, our MRR on the deal increases, and we have multiple agents scoped out. And another kind of key, like unique thing about this deal is that we're working extremely closely with the client full stack technology partner. So they had another technology partner that essentially runs their entire full stack platform for the front end, the back end, everything. So as you all can imagine, we have to work very closely with them for things like API access, data isolation, and all that good stuff. Proposed AI agents, we had a few client-facing automations to boost efficiency. Like I said, a couple of chatbots, some internal process automations, and then we've got a bunch of agents in the roadmap that once we get over these kind of higher priority builds, we're going to be looking at a few of those as well. So jumping into the sales cycle, this was a fun one, I guess. It was like, it's like 9 weeks long. So inbound lead actually. So the lead came through via Nate's top of funnel. Actually, Nate ran, I believe, the first kind of introductory call where basically assessed that, hey, like this would be a good fit. And then we ran our first discovery call with the client together on March 18th of this year, obviously, March 18th, 2025. And so on that discovery call, what actually happened? That's pretty key. And like Nate said, we're sharing over the framework at the end of the workshop, and so we can definitely like see patterns there. But essentially, like a few high level takeaways from the discovery call, and something that everyone should do on a discovery call. So first one was we really established technical competence and point of authority within AI. At the time, like MCP was brand new. We were in like a crazy hype cycle in March, if you guys remember. It was like literally every single day there was something else going on. And so that kind of like existential, like how do I keep up with AI was there. And Nate and I did a very good job of taking a commanding point of view and knowledge on the entire space and conveying that to the client, to the prospect. We also learned that the client is extremely bullish on AI. They came to that call with a roadmap of AI agents where he's already done some preliminary like ROI assessment, which that's in the framework as well. But that is probably the highest buying signal that we've seen so far. If the prospect comes to the call with a bunch of ideas for automations, hands down, it's the highest buying signal we've seen. We've also uncovered some key success criteria on that call. So we got some quantifiable metrics on certain processes, and also we're able to demonstrate how our system would, greatly reduce those manual overheads. We established common ground, had like we cracked some jokes, had a laugh, and built a foundation for a relationship, which was also key. We proved the ability to be dynamic and problem solve in real time, and then also uncover the need for that technology partner. So I know that's all pretty high level stuff, but that's all like really, really critical. That stuff that like you would want to do basically on every discovery call. Our most successful deals, most successful discovery calls have had some, and ideally all of those components. And that's a pretty like comprehensive, collectively exhaustive list of things that you would want to do on a discovery call. So for like that structure, first 28 minutes or so of that call, we were basically diving into the customer's needs. So he demoed his platform, showed us some current processes, and we were basically like, every time he did like something manual, we were like, this is how we would do it with AI. That was essentially first like 28, 30 minutes of the call. The next 10, 15 minutes or so, we talked about additional agents, beyond the first two that we had scoped out there in the beginning. And then wrapped up that call with like 10, 15 minutes or so discussion on our pricing model, which at the time actually of this original discovery call, we were pricing on developer hours, which we switched actually like mid sales cycle. and then answer some questions about IP ownership and the business on that discovery call. And so key like kind of takeaway and next steps from that was prospect was very happy with the call, wanted to get us under NDA, and then also loop in, like I said, that technology partner as kind of the natural next step, because when you're scoping out all these solutions, it was pretty essential that we we needed API access for everything we were talking about, which was run through his technology partner. And so that was like natural next step. And so we basically had that go on for March 20th to April 1st. So in that time, we got the NDA signed, and then we joined in the technology partner on the discussion. And so after that, April 1st was the next call where we deep dived on call with the client technology partner. Again, this was like very much proving ROI and technical competence, deep diving into like the API documentation, live on call. We were like showing wireframes, and basically proving the fact that, first of all, these systems are possible, and here's like the expected ROI with efficiency gains in the actual automations that we would deliver. And so that call was really good. Again, that call was just Nate and I. So it was just Nate and I on the discovery call. It's just Nate and I on this proving ROI call. After that call, we had again proposed the initial scope that we had originally discussed, talked about a delivery timeline. And here, actually, the client came back with an email. Basically, it was something along the lines of, I really want to move forward, but the implementation timeline is killing me. And then so Nate and I sent over basically an enterprise option, which was significantly higher price than what we had been scoping out, to kind of meet that urgency need. And so we were then in negotiation phase for, as you can see, like over a month, right? After that proving ROI call, all the way until May 12th is when the customer actually ended up signing. So in that time, that's 6-7 weeks. It was essentially just a back and forth negotiation. Like it was like an omni-channel negotiation. It was crazy because we had an email chain with Nate and I, and then when the prospect expressed his high urgency, he sent the mobile number, like he sent his phone number over. So I gave him a call on the phone right here on this day, and that's when we discussed basically the expedited timeline and what it would take for us to ship faster, as well as the agent by agent pricing model. So that was essentially like almost like an incentive base for us, where as soon as we deploy an agent, we increase the MRR because there's a maintenance and overhead fee associated with that. Also on this call, uncovered some key information that there were some bigger firms coming through and pitching similar functionality to the client. And so that was some pretty key information. Showed that like, hey, like their budget is definitely higher because there's bigger firms coming in. Also, we can beat them out as like a lean agency with an expedited timeline, and being able to move quick, right? And so, and this back and forth is going on over SMS, over phone call. Over SMS, he agreed to an 8K per month, 8-month timeline. We actually then countered with all the knowledge that we had about the big firms coming in, his need for a timeline, with a 12K per month, with deployment fees increasing MRR each time we deployed an agent. We had kind of a final back and forth here where I think the client went on vacation for like a day or two. He was hearing out all these other firms, and actually in like towards the end of April, I remember having a conversation with Nate where we were like, yeah, okay, this deal is probably dead because he hadn't responded in a while. And then all of a sudden, May 12th, we're boom, we had the contract signed. So that was a pretty big win, and he ended up agreeing over SMS, which was also pretty interesting. After that, we scheduled in our kickoff call, and so that was essentially our kickoff call that we've since standardized a lot more, but basically just getting them onboarded to our client portal, setting up the initial sprints. At this point in time, we loop in Tyler and our entire tech team, setting up the sprints, and making sure that we are ready to essentially just deliver on everything that we had agreed on. So that was a sales cycle, pretty wild ride. Again, 9 weeks, seeing like similar-ish timelines, but again, it really all depends on the customer, right? Like we've had larger deals that close a lot quicker. We've had smaller deals that took same amount of time. So it really depends. But this was definitely a pretty interesting one. And so the final scope we agreed on was basically these 4 high-level automations with additional ones in the roadmap. So we had 2 reviewer agents, and I kind of had to like blur out the like specific name of what they were, but essentially they were just automating different processes that our customers would go through on their platform. So the key success criteria we saw was it would take some of his customers 7 to 8 minutes to like upload the relevant documentation, click their website, super manual process. Maybe they missed something, maybe there's something missing there. And so we had a success criteria of trying to get that down to 30 seconds of essentially once the customer uploads the documents, they don't have to enter in any information. We parse all of that data and auto-populate the fields on the web application, which is a pretty large front-end component, right? Which is why we had to work with the technology partner, super in detail. And that's like kind of high level scope for the reviewer, for both reviewer agents. We had a processor agent for again, like just an internal process optimization, as well as generating a report here. And then we had a AI chatbot, which was very interesting because of data permissioning and data isolation. We actually we're actually still doing this, but we have to run pretty much a database replication of their AWS. I believe it's Postgres on RDS, and we're essentially doing that for the chatbot because we talked about a few different approaches here, like VectorDB versus NLP to SQL. Figured out that the NLP to SQL would be better for performance and latency, and we also have a bunch of pre-built functionality for that, and so that's why we were running with that approach for the chatbot. So this is high level what we had scoped in terms of when we deploy one of these, we have a set maintenance fee. There was many more agents in the roadmap that once we get to those in the development cycle, we would then scope out an additional deployment and maintenance fee on top of the already recurring monthly fee to deploy those agents. And so what does that actually look like, right? And by the way, this is the last slide, so like definitely want to open it up to Q&A after this. But so pricing structure and breakdown, right? So our core pricing model, like I said, we had a flat monthly base rate of $12K per month for our core engineering, delivery, and maintenance for new agents. On the cost side for us, that in and of itself, we're already profitable as an agency on that rate. We're pretty profitable on that. We had dynamic billing again, right? So each time we deploy an agent goes live into production, we increase that price. And again, we had gotten rid of the per hour pricing that we were messing around with, 2-3 months ago, just not very much like a traditional dev shop. That's the way they would price, and we're obviously different than that. Like these systems are way different, and so this is essentially how we get to that 211,000 number, right? And why I'm actually more bullish that it's going to end up being larger with this customer, because first of all, we're crushing delivery, and second of all, there's more agents that he keeps putting in the pipeline. But essentially, first couple months, we are doing development on the initial agents. By month 3 and month 4, deploy the reviewer agents, which increases our MRR. Month 5, deploy the chatbot, again, increases our MRR. And these are all terms that are baked into our contract, right? These additions to the MRR. Month 6, deploy the processor agent. And then assuming that there's no more agents after that, which is not true, there's 3 more agents, which we've already done some preliminary scoping on. That would be the MRR for us to continue development, as well as maintenance and optimization on these agents. And so that's how we got to the number. That's why I think it's going to be higher than 211,000. When you annualize the deal structure, because there are just more agents in the pipeline. And so yeah, high level, that's basically the end of the presentation. What I had, again, like recap what we covered: sales pipeline, right from initial discovery and contact all the way to our kickoff when the client signed the deal. Talk high level about the scope, which we'll dive into more detail into next week, and then finally the pricing structure and breakdown. So yeah, that's again this basically all that I have for the presentation. So definitely want to get to some questions.
Thanks everyone for hopping in here. And Milan, if there's anything you want to close off with, now's the time.
I guess just appreciate everyone for your time. Appreciate everyone for your questions. I hope hope it was helpful. Nate, again, big thank you for having me here, and best of luck with your presentation. I know you're about to run something up in another webinar, so best of luck there.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for hopping in. It was a great session, and we'll see you next Wednesday, July 16th. The time's a little different, so just pay attention to the calendar. But we'll see you guys next week, and yeah, take care.
Thanks everybody.
Everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
But yeah, thanks for hopping in, everyone. This is part 2 of the anatomy of a $211,000 deal with TrueHorizon. So great to have you guys here. If you guys were in that first session, you've already met Milan and kind of heard about our backgrounds, the way that we kind of came together back in December and then officially launched TrueHorizon with our other co-founder, Tyler, who's also here in mid-January. So yeah, but if this is your first time hopping in, then yeah, welcome. Great to introduce you to Milan. I'm sure he'll give another quick background introduction before he kicks off with this presentation here. But the way that this session is going to work is we will run, I think he's got a presentation prepared that maybe will be 20, 30 minutes, something like that. And then we're just basically going to open it up for the rest of the hour for Q&A. So any questions you guys may have about, you know, the sales process, discovery and scoping, even though we kind of covered that last week, or some of the stuff that he talks about today in the presentation, feel free to raise your hand and ask. You can see we've got a raise hand function down on the bottom of the screen, and then I'll put you in the queue. As you can see, Glenn's got his hand raised right now. So that's how it'll work. We could please ask to stick to one question. If you ask a question and then you want to get back in the queue and wait, feel free to do that, but we'll limit it to one question per person just so we can keep the questions rolling. And yeah, we'll go for about an hour then. Real quick before I hand it over to you, Milan, Glenn, did you have something you wanted to start us off with, or were you just getting ready for later?
I'm getting ready for later.
Okay, gotcha. You may have to put your hand back up because I think sometimes when you speak, it'll lower it automatically. So, but cool. Good to see you're eager to ask a question. I'll be excited to hear what that is. But also, I would say, if Milan's okay with it too, during his presentation, if there's something that's particularly interesting, you can drop a comment in the chat, and I'll be moderating as well, so we can make it pretty interactive as well. So, if that all sounds good to you guys, and Milan, if it sounds good to you, I'll hand it over, and you can give a quick intro, and then we'll just go ahead and get started.
Yeah, 100% sounds good. Well, thanks for setting the stage there, Nate. Glenn, appreciate the eagerness for sure. I would say, forgive me, guys, in general, I've just got some popcorn chicken over there, so if you see me taking a bite, honestly, I haven't had time for lunch. But anyways, yeah, so appreciate everyone for hopping on. Really appreciate your time. And one of the biggest priorities for me, obviously, is just trying to add as much value as possible. So like Nate said, definitely just want to answer, any questions that come up, but kind of as many as possible. And so, yeah, Mateo, we'll definitely get into privacy and security as we get moving here. And so quick introduction again on me. My name is Milan, co-founder here at TrueHorizon. Like Nate said, we formed the company back in January. Since then, it's been a pretty crazy ride. We now have actually 10 full-time employees, including us 3 as co-founders. We've done over 20 enterprise and SMB implementations, and kind of just have been growing like crazy. And we've learned a lot of stuff along the way, and definitely just kind of want to share that, because the opportunity for people to sell AI systems to businesses and make money and capitalize is we're at the beginning of the adoption curve. So it's very exciting stuff. So yeah, like Nate said, I've just got a quick presentation. Again, want to kind of make sure I can get to as many questions as possible. And so I will share my screen over here. Yeah, okay, cool. So again, quick recap. This is session 2 in this workshop. We are walking through this $211,000 build. That's an annualized figure for this insurance client that we have. Today is going to be essentially our comprehensive breakdown of our development and deployment strategy. And so, fair warning, there's a lot of specifics to the build that I can't divulge just because we're under NDA. But approve some stuff with the client, and there's some high-level stuff that we can definitely talk about. The main focus of the presentation is really going to be like our actual processes for delivering as an agency. And one distinction to note is, we're operating with a team with project managers, engineers, and things like that. So we're basically walking through those processes. I understand there's probably a lot of people that are solo agency founders, or just kind of working on your own, or maybe like with one engineer. And there's still a lot of principles, I think, that can be extracted from this kind of structure that hopefully would add value for anyone who's shipping AI workflows into production for clients. And so that's kind of the main focus. The agenda for today is, we're just gonna have like a quick review of what we talked about on the first session. We are going to go over like the key functional deliverables for the project. Again, have to keep it kind of high level and abstract. We're going to go into our delivery workflow, high level overview, as well as high level overview of how we, run project management and our processes. And then we'll get into more detail for kind of each phase of a project delivery lifecycle. And then open it up for Q&A after that. And so, Nate, if that sounds good, I can go ahead and jump into it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get started.
Awesome. So again, starting off here with the basically the review. So what we covered last time was the sales process. So again, this was a mid-sized, small to medium-sized insurance company. They were handling large volumes of basically regulatory and legal documentation in their processes, where they had customers, they had partners coming in and basically uploading different documents and unstructured data, right? PDFs, Excel files, and essentially the build here was to extract certain data from that, route that to different teams, integrate with their existing technology infrastructure, and all that good stuff. Routing things to underwriting, compliance, legal teams based on very, very certain criteria. And here the objective of the engagement really was to review this entire manual process with these AI systems. And so, one of the things to note here is we say AI agent, and obviously the definition of that is pretty, I guess, up for debate. I think depending on who you ask, in my eyes, an agent is something that can just autonomously execute tasks, reason through problems on its own, do its own research, and get things done. In that sense, this workflow is more so actually of just an automation. There is some reasoning capability associated there. And there are definitely pathways to turn this, fully agentic, which we can talk about, but just some nuance there. So we can definitely discuss that in the Q&A. And then, so the main functionality, again, document processing here, right? Multiple input formats from CSV, Excel, PDF attachments, getting in data via API, via SQL calls. So many different data pipelines that we had to set up and basically parse and extract key fields into very standardized schemas. So I'm just looking right here. And then based on the specific business logics that the client provided us for different rules, we would then go ahead and flag things to compliance, send that over for review, etc. And that's that dynamic routing portion right here. So again, more so of an automation flow with hard-coded business logic, and that's honestly really it. And so, really, as the portions that we can talk about today. And then again, some functional highlights. So drop zone portal, basically a drag and drop interface. This was done by the client. We talked about the client having a technology partner in the last in the last call, and this is essentially what that is, right? This is where the end user would come in and upload the documents. We had these different, again, workflows here for automated verification. Again, here this is where AI reasoning comes into play. We A/B tested a few different foundational models here in terms of how to actually analyze the data that's coming in, providing logging here, right? As you can imagine, insurance, pretty regulated industry, so we have to make sure that we're basically tagging every run with a unique trace ID that allows us to basically log and audit the entire process. And then of course here, extensibility. So this is a portion we're still working on, but basically giving the client the option to dynamically update rules and different things that might be hitting the system, in which case, we would then propagate through those changes via a prompting sequence or whatever it is. And so this is actually a very cool function that we're seeing across use cases also. So that's something else to talk about is this is a very, very high value service to many clients because, I mean, all this stuff changes with AI, right? You never really stick to one use case. It's kind of like an infinite rabbit hole of how far can you take things. And so this is a pretty key use case there as well. So that's high level recap basically of the first call and going into a bit more detail here on what the build is like. Moving into our actual delivery SOPs. This is the brainchild of our co-founder Tyler, and so I'll basically do my best to try to explain this. But so high level like purpose and definitions, right? So this SOP is really focused on service delivery and project management post sale, right? So like originally last call we talked about pre-sale. This is what happens. Okay, we sign the customer, cool. Now what do we do, right? So ensuring that consistent, high quality implementation, and we leverage ClickUp for task management and client portals. And so just some definitions here: technical roadmap, right? Document which outlines all of the deliverables, system architecture, pretty self-explanatory there, right? Diagrams, descriptions of what the system and systems will look like. Our agile framework, which is basically just taking iterative sprints to deliver features, make sure we're staying on track and things are trackable by the client. And then user stories, probably the most important thing to scope out in the pre-sale phase, and getting very objective success criteria as to what does a successful project, successful automation actually look like. Cool. So high-level delivery workflow, we have this broken out into 5 phases, and there's actually 6 phases, where the last one is kind of like a deployment. But as we discussed here in the first call, this is, we signed the contract here for an annual deal, so there's really no like full-on deployment. That's just a pretty typical like process for us. If you were doing, let's say, a project-based implementation, then there would be, that kind of deployment phase as well, which would actually come here, and then you hand off the solution once it's deployed, obviously. But high level, basically, so phase 1, we start with the kickoff. So again, the trigger for like this presentation is like deal is inked, right? Deal is signed, like payment has been received, or whatever's the the kickoff, the post-sale kickoff, which for us is obviously deal signed, invoice paid. We then schedule our kickoff call. That is where we set up the client portal. We collect the different credentials and things that we need. And again, all this has been scoped out pre-sales, right? Because we know we have a pretty objective scope of work as to what exactly, that we're going to get done. What are the different integrations we're going to need? What kind of credentials do we need the client to provision for us? And of course, are there any sample inputs that we need? Which in this case, there was a ton, right? Because we're talking about so many legal and regulatory documentations that we basically needed those examples to essentially train the AI as to how to extract those key KPIs. And then we also set up an SLA here for a stand-up, which we also did this pre-sales, but on the kickoff call is when we actually created the invite and scheduled the call. Phase 2 after this is architecture and road mapping. So this is basically where we will map out the entire architecture, the system as a whole, any subsystems that might be involved, any sub workflows. Are there going to be any areas where maybe end-to-end falls short and we need to go in with some custom code? That's what this phase is for. And we basically, again, just map out those flows. We take in a lot of the business logic that the client has provided us on the kickoff call and the pre-sales from all of our nodes, and go ahead and basically reconcile that with the actual technical roadmap of how do we develop this thing, right? Like, what does it actually look like when we get hands on keyboard and start developing? Again, some system dependencies there, right? Maybe we have to wait on a third-party API team to get back to us. Different integration touch points. Maybe we're working with multiple different third-party teams. In this case, we're just working with one other team. Again, it's that full stack technology partner of the end client. And then we also sign off here. So our PM would basically sign off and approve the architecture diagram. And then we are basically ready for development, which is this phase 3. So this is, the longest phase. This is basically in an engagement like the one like this one, like we had talked about in the first one, the agent by agent deployment model, ongoing development included in that base monthly fee. Phase 3 never ends, right? Because we're always doing ongoing development as part of the contract. However, I will say that once we deploy a system into place and we're now moving on to the next agent or the next system, we then kind of loop back here to phase 2, architect that out, and then again enter into sprint planning for that particular system. And so again, what it is that we do here, we break down basically these features. We break down even further this architecture that we just created into very specific user stories and tasks. And ClickUp calls them tasks. Some people call them items. Obviously, it doesn't matter, but we call it tasks. And so very specific, essentially development deliverables, right? So it might be something like, let's get an automated embedding workflow over this particular Google Drive folder, or let's integrate with this API and see exactly what data it is that we can pull from that API. So like very specific, developer like engineering deliverables. We basically break down this whole large project that we've been scoping for 9 weeks into these tasks, right? We then go ahead and implement the review cycles at the end of each 2-week sprint. And actually, I believe with this client, we're running 1-week sprints. I actually believe it's 1-week sprints with this client, but it again, it really depends. Like we have some clients that we're doing 2-week sprints. And then we go ahead and update that breakdown and the capacity charts. So that's something we do internally, like basically what engineers are we assigning. And again, this whole thing is like we have a PM, we have a couple PMs, we have a few engineers. If you are a solo agency owner, like I strongly recommend you to also follow this phase. This is essentially reconciling like traditional software development lifecycle with like new age AI system development, and basically take the best of both worlds so that you never miss out on best operating principles when it comes to delivering technology, but you're also able to go ahead and leverage AI obviously and deliver AI solutions. So yeah, phase 4 then, basically delivery and handoff, right? This is when a client basically can get in there. We are doing a comprehensive system verification. We do something called automated batch QA. So, leveraging LLM as a judge, essentially, to go ahead and grade different outputs, give us responses, and essentially just, QA the solution. And then finally, user acceptance testing. So we have a feedback form where the client can basically come in. And again, we actually do this very iteratively as well, like on the stand-ups. We do this on the weekly stand-ups as well. And basically, we're just validating, hey, are we meeting our goals, right? Is the objective success criteria being met? And are we passing test cases before pushing anything into production? So that was, I meant to keep that high level. I feel like I got pretty detailed in there, but this is again supposed to be high level, but some project management categories and our process overview, the way we kind of do things and the way we label these tasks. So each one of these 6 things you see here is basically how we categorize tasks. And so we have an inbox, which are basically features in the pipeline, different tasks that are awaiting approval. And anytime actually a client submits a ticket for a feature request or for anything, that goes directly into the inbox. We then have our product backlog, which are the approved tasks and features, the things that we know basically need to get done but are not prioritized for a sprint. We have current priorities, which are, now we're getting into the priorities, right? So like what needs to be scheduled for the next sprint. In progress, so we have an SOP here where essentially the developer who is responsible for that task will go ahead and put that, move the status of that task to in progress so we can track everything. And by the way, all this is available to the client also via the client portal. So the client can track the sprint. So in their mind, they can obviously always see that things are getting done. And they can also map internally to, okay, here's when I can expect a solution. Here's when I can, tell my team to get ready or like whatever it is. We then have a review. So after a developer finishes a task, we also have a new SOP basically where the developer films like a 1 to 3 minute Loom video, basically just explaining that task. Obviously, if it's something like super simple, then no. But for most tasks, yes. And then we attach that Loom video to the task, which makes it very easy for the PM to go ahead and QA, as well as for the end client to kind of see what's going on if they do want to see that. And then we move the task to done. Once that's passed all tests, and kind of the final test there again is the PM running QA, and we verify that everything is functional.
Real quick, Milan, before you hop onto this next slide, I thought maybe you could real quick address what Alexander said in the chat.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, sorry, I haven't been seeing the...
No worries. I was just, because I think there's some other questions that we'll definitely revisit at the end of the presentation, but I think this one maybe went a little bit along with that previous slide.
Yeah, 100%. So, Alexander, I have about 5 years as a web dev. What you're presenting looks like an ideal organization classic project. Given you have a team of 11 members, is $210K enough for a year? Once you implement all, you'll do maintenance. Yeah, so great question here. So first of all, we are profitable with our team on this deal. And secondly, with the same team, we have this same team deployed across 10, 15 projects. So the price point was pretty attractive for us to take on this deal. Like definitely made sense for us to take on this deal. Obviously you want to charge as much as possible. So like, if you say is 210K enough, obviously I'd say no, because you want as much as possible. But when it comes down to unit economics, the deal definitely made sense. And as part of the contract, because it's an agent by agent deployment, the maintenance is baked into the fee. So any future requests or ongoing maintenance essentially is the client can bake that into the sprint structure. So that's kind of how we're running that. And there are SLAs associated with the resources that we have provisioned. So if the client, let's say, wants to put in a major feature request, we would slow down development on the other stuff because we're reapportioning resources, right? So that's a potential upsell there where we say, hey, look, I know you want to get this done. We're gonna have to bring on another engineer for this. It's gonna increase your fee by X amount. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question there.
Yeah, I think that was great. And also, if you missed that first session, Alexandru, not sure if you did or not, but there was a slide where Milan talked a little bit more about during that discovery call phase and the scoping, kind of broke down the month by month way that this deal kind of evolves as more things are deployed. So definitely take a look at that if you haven't seen that call yet.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, awesome. Great question there. So yeah, so some of the I guess kind of rules that we follow here, just to keep structure, is the task flow that we just talked about, some role responsibilities, right? Only the PM kind of has oversight of how to move tasks through the entire system. What do the developers do here, right? Mainly moving tasks from current priorities to in progress and then to review. PM kind of has final say there on the QA and approval into done. So kicking off here, and again, I feel like I went into strong detail, and I definitely want to open it up for QA. So I'm just gonna basically run through this real quick. Again, this was just supposed to go through each part again. So how we run the kickoff, we basically confirm the objective, scope, gather everything, like I said in the beginning, make sure that we have everything we need, get them onboarded into the client portal, provision the NANet instance as needed. We also have a self-hosted service protocol. Again, this is an SLA that we decide with each client, right? Who's hosting? Are we doing fully managed? We talked through some of the deployment options last time. But we actually run Coolify on AWS EC2 for self-hosted protocol. And so that's kind of how we do that. And then we go ahead and provision different LLM API keys in database provisioning, obviously never using API keys across use cases or across clients. Again, the system architecture, technical roadmap, what do we do here, right? Identify all the systems and all the subsystems. For example, an NLP to SQL agent might include a database schema subselection model, might have a RAG-based vector store, might have some different SQL generation process. How essentially do we abstract out the system? Go ahead and creating the architecture diagrams, and then as well as the technical roadmap development, right? So granular, what actually gets done? What are the tasks that an engineer can read and be like, cool, I got everything I need. Let me go ahead and knock this out. Sprint planning and project execution, how we divide, again, typically either 1 or 2 week sprints, assigning tasks, again, based on those SOPs that we just discussed. Again, here it is, basically the exact same thing. And then also the user story development, right? How are we actually testing functionality, verifying that user stories are being met, and that, again, we're driving towards that objective success criteria that we had defined in the pre-sales phase and is documented there in the contract. Completion and handoff, right? So again, this is some nuance here if you're on a monthly retainer versus if you're doing project-based. But again, just performing end-to-end testing, validating against the original requirements, acceptance testing specifications, have a client QA round, which again, we basically do every week on the stand-up basically at the end of a sprint. And then we go ahead and prepare for handoff if that solution is being handed off and deployed. And then, yeah, okay, that was it. That was the last slide. So yeah, again, just to recap, basically what we covered there, right? High level on the build with the document analysis, different routing, different rule-based escalation criteria. So a fair amount of business logic, a lot of nitty-gritty work with different APIs, different data pipelines, and then basically our entire kind of end-to-end delivery process. And we follow this with every client that we work with. Mainly the nuance comes in final completion, deployment, and handover, depending on the contract structure. So yeah, cool. I know I just talked a lot, so I will stop sharing and definitely want to open it up to Q&A and have a quick bite of some chicken.
Yeah, go for it. You've earned it, Milan. Appreciate you guys. And Milan, if there's anything else you want to close off with, but that's all I got.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. Again, just appreciate everyone's time. Mean a lot that we'd be on here for an hour, so really appreciate it. And the only thing I would say is the next session will be an absolute banger, like absolute banger. We're gonna have an additional thing outside of the discovery call framework to show it's our end-to-end AI sales pipeline, something I'm extremely passionate about, something I can talk in more detail than today's workshop. And yeah, that one will be an absolute banger. So I would definitely try to show up live for that one if possible. And yeah, again, I appreciate everyone's time.
Sweet. Yeah, just quick reminder, that'll be July 30th, so not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after next, July 30th, 4 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, an hour from now in 2 weeks. So cool. Thanks for hopping in, everyone. Or sorry, that time wasn't right. But anyways, yeah, thanks for hopping in, everyone. We will see you in the next call. So
cool. Appreciate it, everyone. See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks for hopping in, everyone. This is the third and final session, so I'm not sure if you guys have met Milan. He is one of my co-founders at our company, TrueHorizon, and he was kind of leading the other two parts earlier this month. So super excited to have him back for the final one. This one's going to be super fun. I took a look at the slide deck that Milan has, so I'm really excited to see this, and I hope you guys are too. The way that this is going to work. Milan's prepared a little deck and he's got a presentation for us. And then at the end, we want to make it, as engaging and as beneficial to you guys as possible. So we'll kind of open it up for kind of a live Q&A. You can ask Milan anything about, what he talked about or what we're doing at TrueHorizon or anything that you may want some specific advice on with your AI freelancing, consulting, whatever it is that you want to call it nowadays. And yeah, we'll just kind of go like that. So you can use the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen and that will kind of put you in the queue. And then we'll kind of just go down the list once we get to the Q&A portion. I will say, though, throughout the actual presentation, I know Milan always likes it to be conversational. So if there's something he says that doesn't quite click, or you have a follow-up question that's very specific to what he's talking about on screen, feel free to unmute and just throw out the question. Or if you feel more comfortable, drop it in the chat, and I'll do my best to sort of moderate that and pause Milan if there's a good question. So that's kind of how this will run. Yeah, I guess I'll kind of hand it off to you, Milan, to do a brief intro, just in case not everyone here has met you before. A quick intro about how we met, your background a little bit, and then we'll just go ahead and get started.
Yeah, for sure. Well, super stoked to be here again, Nate. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, so what's up, everyone? Thanks everyone for joining. My name's Milan, co-founder here at TrueHorizon. I come from a data infrastructure background, so I ran a data infrastructure agency for a few years, basically taking tools like Snowflake and Databricks and Datadog off the shelf and implementing those for businesses. Back in October, November time, basically decided to pivot fully into AI because things were getting super crazy. That's when Nate and I teamed up alongside our third co-founder to form TrueHorizon. Back in January is when we formed the company officially. Since then, it's been a pretty crazy ride. We've now grown the team. We've got 10 full-time. I don't know if anyone saw Nate's post. He just put out in the community about our, I don't know what the exact wording is. I guess our developer academy slash funnel into an engineering role, which is super exciting. Really great opportunity for those folks who want to, be an AI engineer at one of kind of the leading firms, working with SMBs all the way up to Fortune 500s, developing solutions in N8N. And so, yeah, as part of all that, it's been a crazy ride. Learned a ton as to how to actually close AI deals. Still a learning process, obviously, because all the stuff is so new. But hoping to just share some of the stuff that's worked, and hopefully add some value. So, like Nate said, I want this to be as conversational and kind of high value as possible. So, any questions, just feel free to throw them in the chat with the raise hand function, like Nate said, and we'll definitely be sure to get to everything. So yeah, with that being said, Nate, if that sounds good, I can go ahead and share my screen, get into it.
Yep, let's do it.
Sweet. So I'll pop open the slides. Okay, cool. There we go. Go into present mode. So yeah, like we said, today is the final day of the 3-day workshop, and today the focus really is on basically the modern AI sales pipeline and just our overall playbook for closing deals. So in the first two workshops, we talked about basically how we scoped and actually closed this $211,000 deal with the insurance company. The second workshop was more so about how do we actually develop and deliver the engineering solutions. Today's workshop is not really specific to that deal. It's just kind of high level, the entirety of the sales pipeline. Everything in here is true for deals of that size, for larger deals that we've closed, as well as smaller deals. It's kind of a distillation of all the learnings we have from this kind of modern AI sales pipeline, from initial discovery all the way to client delivery and retainment. So, I guess we go ahead and jump into it. And so, quick introduction here. The real path to building an AI services business. So this is something that I'm pretty confident, pretty passionate about, because I don't know if you guys are on the whole Instagram side of AI agency guru hype. There's a lot of fluff out there with people saying that, hey, this is the easy way to make money. Okay, overnight you're gonna scale to 10, 20K per month. Obviously, it doesn't work like that, right? Like, there's no, it's tough to go overnight to 10 or 20K per month. And so I just want to put it up front, right? Selling AI solutions isn't easy money like a lot of the gurus will try to sell you on. It's entrepreneurship at its core, right? Especially if you're starting out solo. You're going to basically handle everything from all the pre-sales tasks like client outreach, making content, relationship building, paperwork with MSAs, NDAs, contracts, scoping out projects, determining pricing models, aligning with the budget. Post-sale, you've got to actually engineer the solution, right? So how are you ensuring reliability? What chat model are you going to use? How do you handle the complex data integrations? Are your solutions safeguarded from hallucinations? When you start working with bigger companies, how do you handle data compliance and security concerns, right? What RAG technique are you going to use? All these kinds of things go into it. And so I just want to be upfront, and that's not to scare anyone, right? That's, if anything, that's a competitive advantage that everyone on this call has, is because there's so many people that thinks it's easy money, but the reality is this isn't literally a generational opportunity. There's maybe no better opportunity than implementing these solutions for businesses. There will always be a skills gap there. And, one of the core parts of our thesis here at TrueHorizon is that the intelligence of the foundational models is going to continue to increase as we've seen. But one of the core kind of bets that we're taking is that there will always be a need for someone to point that super intelligence somewhere. And that's, essentially, I think, what this kind of boils down to. So, something I'm super passionate about. And again, I think a lot of people can make a lot of money out of this. Just to be upfront, that there's kind of a lot of stuff that goes into this. But everyone on this call is probably already well positioned and knows much of these things. So it's pretty good. So phase one here of the modern AI sales pipeline is the discovery portion. So we've been sharing over the discovery call framework in the first couple of workshops. We're going to do the same thing again today. And so I'll just run through it pretty high level again, but kind of the whole point here of the discovery phase, again, right, is to understand client needs, understand the opportunity for AI, set up trust, and really just identify ROI-driven solutions, right? At the end of the day, it's what the business owner cares about. Most of them don't care about end-to-end versus make.com versus Pathlit versus custom code. They care about, okay, Mr. Agency, if I'm giving you $500, how do I get 5,000 back, right? So that's what the whole kind of discovery is, getting the initial bearings as to how to prove that in the next phase. And so we follow a framework for almost all of these. So again, laying the groundwork, right? Researching the prospect, compiling insights on their business, on their size, maybe on their budget, and brainstorming automation opportunities. A lot of times based on their product offerings, or what we might see if they fill out a form and come to us through our website, which is most of our prospects. They'll put in there, hey, I need a marketing agent. Hey, I need a sales agent, and we can kind of come to these calls prepared with some initial work there. Again, on the call, we will always kind of open it up with, of course, like, what's the purpose, right? Not here to waste anyone's time. Share the agenda. Ask if that agenda sounds good. I think one of the biggest mistakes I see on sales calls is the salesperson trying to talk too much. The best sales calls are the ones where the customer is talking all the time, right? You want the prospect to just talk because first of all, like people like that, and second of all, you get more and more information that's going to actually help you close the sale, right? So really just like let the prospect talk is a big one. And the opening question always, besides like, hey, like, does the agenda sound good? I always, and I still do, open with, how bullish are you on AI? This is a key question because there's such a wide range of people that we talk to, and just in general on, you know, how they feel about AI. And of course, the prospect is like, oh, you know, like, I love it, man. You know, like, I'm watching Nate's content, and like, here's a roadmap. Like, I started messing around in N8N. I have like 9 agents that I want to build. That's the highest buying signal we have seen by far, is people who are truly bullish on AI and feel the competitive, like, adopt or die scenario, which I think I talked about a little bit in the previous workshops. And then we also see people who are, you know, curious, but no kind of roadmap, right? They're like, hey, I've seen this, you know, maybe my friend is using it. In this case, you know, a lot of times we kind of want to educate and help build their vision rather than the high buy-in. It's like, okay, hey, let's take what you got, Mr. Prospect, and let's just run it to the moon, because you're already bought in. Like, you're already gonna buy something. And so we kind of have 4 pillars here.
Yeah, Glenn, hold on. Glenn, did you want to say something?
Yeah, to that point, I see it right. You're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you, but like you said, let them talk the majority. But what are you doing? That's a great question. How bullish are you on AI? But like, what are some of your guidelines to qualify that lead, either on the call itself or some of the data you try to collect after the call, to really understand, is this somebody that is ready to, you know, other than they're going to say, oh, I have 200K for a budget, they still not might be the right fit for or a good client for you. So maybe you cover that later, but can you pepper in there maybe now, like, how do you decide if this is actually a viable client, like, to get to work with, they're ready to, you know, ready to adopt your solutions, but also just like, are they going to be a good investment for you?
Yeah, great question. It's something we deal with actually every day, and I think the answer is really going to depend on, like, you know, you as an agency owner, and like what types of prospects do you like to work with. See, like, we get a lot of prospects coming in who they have an idea for some backend AI automation, but they also want to pair that with like a full stack application. Like, there's a front end component, and they want like user management, and they want to scale something to like 5 million, you know, active users. Like, we don't have like front end guys in house. We don't have like a full stack application, like, dedicated dev team. So like, for that, those types of prospects are not really a good fit for us. And so it really depends, I think, on the expertise of you and your team. We also follow this framework of budget, authority, and timeline. So that's also a good way to get some like initial filters out there. Like, you know, so after the discovery call, you can say something like, hey, you know, based on what we talked about, right on ballpark, you know, 15 to 20K for us to get this done. You know, aligning like with the ROI, like, how does that fit, right, with what you had in mind? You'll get a pretty good sense there from the budget. Same thing with the timeline. If you're like, hey, you know, when do you guys want this by? And, you know, maybe you're talking to a manager at a larger company, and he's like, yeah, you know, my CEO's breathing down my neck. Like, I needed this yesterday. Obviously, like, pretty good buying signal, right? And then also authority. Like, if you're talking to someone that can't actually pull the trigger on the purchase, then like a lot of times you're really just driving towards building them up as your champion so that they can get you on call with the person who can actually pull the trigger. And so, yeah, those are the few things to really qualify. It's really like budget, authority, and timeline. And then, of course, like, if what they're looking for is in your wheelhouse, I would say that's pretty good way to qualify.
Yeah, you know, I love that question, Glenn, too, because I think before on different Q&A calls, we've kind of talked about, like, just because someone is very eager and willing to hand you money doesn't always mean it is the best fit for you. And, you know, given, you know, where you are as an agency owner in your journey, what are you optimizing for? Sometimes just because they're throwing their wallet at you doesn't mean, you know, they may have really misaligned expectations, which is just going to hurt. You know, it's going to cause you stress and potentially hurt your brand. So that's always something to think about as well. And real quick, just to address Milan, Josh, and Patty's questions, I will say the first call we did, which is available in the community, we actually did 2 sessions of that, so you can watch both those recordings. Milan pretty much dove into our whole discovery call process on those 2 calls. But yeah, if you just want to hit on these real quick, Milan, and then we'll keep going.
Yeah. So Josh, I'm about to decide on a solid ICP, looking at investing in Clay Apollo sales nav. This is where I'm at in list building. Yeah, so I mean, list building, like you could build an agent in-house, right? You could build an AI agent in-house where you feed it an ICP and it's going to go and scrape things on its own. To save a lot of time, I have used Apollo in the past for like cold outreach campaigns. And I've had some success there, but I would say honestly that's like a bit out of my expertise. But we do have, like we have built agents for clients in the past that are list building agents where like you give it an ICP, and it's gonna go and like scrape the web and find it, and that's certainly a doable build at this point. So I would maybe suggest that. And then Patty, no, we don't typically charge for discovery calls. We do. So there are some times though where the sales process turns into consulting just due to the nature and the size of the company. So sometimes we will actually charge for like a it's like a discovery call, but it's really like a consulting call at that point, pre-sales, but that's very rare and that's only for like publicly traded companies. Yeah. Okay. And then
cool, yeah.
Yeah, and then Rachel, just to answer your question, building somebody up that has no decision-making power, that's not a waste of time. Depends on the size of company, right? So like if you're dealing with companies that have thousands of employees, these buying decisions are made basically in multiple levels, right? So you having an internal champion that can basically help you to positively influence the person that is making the decision is very, very much a good use of your time to build up the deal. And for any company of that size, the deal sizes are pretty big. You won't really see that in like an SMB because most of the time you're talking directly to the C-suite.
Cool. Yep. Thanks for hopping in there, Milan. And just to clarify for the rest of the call, I'd say if you guys have a question specific to like what's on screen or something that someone had brought up, then definitely just either jump in or post it in the chat. If your hand is raised, I'm just going to assume it's a question that we're saving for the end at the actual Q&A. So anyways, back to you, Milan.
Appreciate it. Yeah, great questions, guys. So we can keep on moving on here. So that's the discovery call process, right? Again, we have the framework that we're going to share over. It's in way more detail than this. It's like 4 or 5 pages long that I think is super high value for everyone. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. After the discovery call, we have a series of automations that we run. And so this stuff is pretty cool. So right after the discovery call, we have an automatic take the transcript, format that into our standardized proposal template. We use Fireflies. So Fireflies API is like fairly easy to work with. Unfortunately, there's no native node in N8N yet. I don't know about an MCP, but the API is like not too bad to work with. So essentially, we take the Fireflies transcript, we convert that, or we extract what we need, put that directly into a standardized proposal template, send that over for human-in-the-loop review. We, of course, do follow-up email generation, again, with human-in-the-loop review. So both of those get sent to whoever ran the discovery call, whether that's myself, whether that's Nate, or whether that's our account executive, Sandeep. And so that all gets sent for human-in-the-loop review, where we review and then send that off to the prospect. Many times we've booked the second call already on the first call. That's also in the discovery call framework. We also then have an engineering support notification. So if we're dealing with a bigger prospect and on that second call, it's pretty necessary to like run a live demo or have a wireframe that's custom for their use case, or showcase like a related project. We will notify one of our engineers who's in-house for that. So essentially we'll basically send them what is needed, right? So like, for example, if we've discovered that they are looking for a bunch of marketing agents, we would send that over to, just directly like inside of our ClickUp to our engineer who has, built those things out. And then they can essentially bring all the end-to-end flows to the next call for the demo. We have client reminders going out. So 24 hours before a call, via SMS and email if they've opted in, as well as 1 hour before. We send them that just to remind them of the calls. Helped us quite a bit with the show rate. We also have an enhanced end-to-end workflow search. So this is pretty cool. So this is something that we built in-house, which basically takes a natural language input and searches essentially every YouTube, every GitHub, the entire N8N community, everything for all N8N workflows that are relevant, and it's going to bring back a relevant workflow. I think that's something we'll probably roll that out for free next week, actually, TrueHorizon. It's probably going to require everyone to make like a free account at TrueHorizon.ai. But everyone will probably have access to that next week if anyone wants to do that for free. Nate, I don't think we've talked about that yet, but I think that's something that we should probably roll out next week.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. Real quick, I saw one from Apollo. He asked about if you're following a 2-call close framework. You got any thoughts there?
For smaller prospects, yeah. So for builds that are like 10K or less, 2 calls a lot of times is enough. Sometimes even a 1-call close. But that's more so Nate's magic. But it's really for like SMBs. We can do like a 1 or 2 call close. Now that we're like trying to work with bigger companies, it's obviously the sales cycle is way longer. Like some of these sales cycles are months. Like the insurance deal, I think it was like 11 weeks, the one that we showcased in the workshop. So for the smaller ones, yeah. For the bigger ones, it's impossible because they just move so slow and there's so many layers of decision making. And then the last automation here that we're running, which this will probably take, I don't know, another couple months before it's ready for like general release as a product. But this is an NLP to N8N. I know Nate's got a video out on this, and we're trying to make this super robust. But basically, like extract exactly what you need from the transcript to create an N8N workflow, chuck that into an NLP to N8N, and then we're gonna generate a custom N8N flow. That hopefully is the customer build. Like that's the end goal there, which would be pretty insane. But that's I think what we're moving towards. And then we got some common objections here that we see on the discovery call. They're also in the framework, so I won't spend too much time here. But we basically deploy the client for all of our, or we deploy the IP for all of our client. It's always owned by the client. For deployment, we either do fully managed, hybrid, or full handoff. They ask about, hey, do you use ChatGPT or Anthropic? We just say A/B test all of them and share metrics, which is kind of the best thing to do. And then we're hosted on AWS. And so we use their kind of DPA and SLAs for security. So moving on, phase 2 in the sales pipeline is improving value and demoing ROI and really building a business case. Because AI is so new, most prospects need to actually see some value. Ideally through a front-end experience. So like the most recent example of this was like Outreach Agent, where all of us are probably used to looking at N8N, right? So like we can go into N8N and you can imagine any workflow that takes as natural language a prompt, or that takes as input a natural language prompt and outputs some workflow, or like the agent goes and like autonomously executes some task for like a few hours and then comes back. At least I've seen that prospects who aren't like super hands-on in N8N, that's even a bit much, even though N8N is so like non-technical, user-friendly. So showing this through a front-end experience, something that we're kind of A/B testing on sales calls, and it's working pretty well so far. And again, the goal of this phase is to just translate discovery insights into actual outcomes. So like we'll always recap pain points, show a live demo, right? That's like what a majority of the automations are before, after the discovery call, using those N8N workflows. Or if it's a voice agent, showing a voice agent and running a live demo there, so the prospect can actually see something like what's happening. Always will address the data integrations. This is like absolutely critical. This is also a critical component of the discovery call, and I go into more detail in the framework. But being upfront about if N8N has a native node with the exact function that you need, you can be like, hey, Mr. Customer, no problem at all. If it's not, and it's going to be a custom API integration, upfront about like, hey, this is going to take some time, right? We might need like a week or 2 for this integration. And being very clear as to like what are the data sources that we actually need. The worst thing that can happen is like, okay, you ink a deal, you sign a deal, and then you get going, and then all of a sudden the customer's like, hey, by the way, I actually use this for like some critical component of the automation, and then you look into it and like they have some like broken API. That's like a horrible spot to be in, right? So definitely want to avoid that by getting as much information on like the data infrastructure as possible up front. And then always building a business case for the end client, right? Hey, this is how this automation, it's going to help you take more calls, which equals more revenue, right? This is going to help your marketing team save 100 hours per week, more efficient for them. And maybe you can let a couple of them go and save costs, whatever it is, right? And we actually don't really pitch that because that's still like kind of ill-received by a lot of people if you just straight up say like, hey, here's how you can fire people. Some C-suites like love that, and that's like the whole reason why they're exploring. So I would just kind of like play the balance there, and if you see that they're leaning into that, like use that as a selling point, because some of them actually do really love that, and that works.
Quick question, that one for the build business. Yep. So when you're doing ROI, let's say you're grounding it in hours saved. How much of that is coming from the customer and I don't know how many, like how many hours are actually spending this task, or are you just generalizing based on some previous projects we've seen a 20% savings when you introduce a support agent, et cetera, or are you actually getting the data from them?
Yeah, the most effective ones are when we get data from them, but sometimes we'll use like industry averages, but like most of the time it's coming directly from them. So like for voice agents, the key metric is calls missed. Like if you're missing even 30% of your calls, there's a huge value prop there for a voice agent. And same thing with like time spent for teams. So like we're working with a pretty big company right now with their finance department. They have their process like 60 to 70 invoices per month. Their teams are wasting, literally hundreds of hours across multiple people. And so we've quantified basically the number of hours that people use. And that's also a key part of the discovery process. And a lot of times if the client is leaning into AI, they are actually like a little proactive in bringing you those stats because they also want to see it and, prove the ROI as well.
Thanks.
Yep. Hey, and I would also say, no, go ahead, Don.
Oh, I was just curious. Do you guys do like process mapping as part of that? Or is it more of kind of like high level and objective estimated time? Like, do you actually sit down and do, the old kind of like Six Sigma or like sticky note process mapping, or not so much for your time quantifying?
So we did that in the beginning. Now we're starting to charge for that. And so it's not really a part of the discovery process. And this whole actually sales pipeline is tailored for like, hey, we're selling a development, like we're selling a system. We're seeing now that like most companies actually need a consulting and process mapping phase before they even think about this, especially the bigger companies. Mm-hmm. So we've actually kind of pivoted into selling that now. But like, yeah, it's naturally a part of the discovery process. In the most ideal world, we sell that whole thing, right? Like we sell the front end. Hey, let's map all your business processes. Let's consult on this. Let's create an AI roadmap, charge 100K for that. Okay, cool. Now we've got a roadmap of 10 agents. We'll charge another 100K for actually developing them. That's the most ideal. And that's the offer that I actually see having the most value, especially for bigger companies, because they all need the consulting process mapping. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, great.
I was real quick just going to say about with Glenn's question, just keep in mind for everyone here, like we are not like a niched down firm, and if you do niche down and work with one industry, one very specific type of avatar, it's going to make your discovery a lot easier because you already know these metrics and you know the terminology and you can pretty much hit their pain points before they even tell you. So we would be doing that if it wasn't for the inbound from the channel.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, great point. And highly recommend anyone who doesn't have celebrity status like Nate to niche down, because it's going to make everything easier from the sale to the actual development, fulfillment, client retention, everything. So yeah, great point there. And then, yeah, so for actual demos, of course, like, we use N8N. We found that to be the best, most scalable workflow builder. We actually have our CTO, Tyler, about every 8 weeks, because there's so many tools coming up. He runs basically a comprehensive like landscape analysis of all the automation builder tools that are out there, both open source and commercial products. And we've done that 3 times, and each time N8N has come back as the winner. But there are a few other ones that we've seen, obviously like Make.com, Pathlet, Lizer AI, more for enterprise, Relevance AI. Personally, I don't like it, but Tyler kind of likes it, so I put it there. And then there's tons of open source options as well. So yeah. And then we also have an automation over here. So this is a really cool automation. If you have multiple client comms going on at one time, I would highly recommend this. But this is basically, you know, wherever you're tracking your deal pipeline, if that's Notion or Google Sheets or ClickUp or whatever it is, having an agent that's looped in to like that client or prospect, their representation in your CRM with what's going on, let's say via email or like after meetings, so that you always have like a ground truth for all your clients. This has helped us a lot because there's so many times where like we're emailing with a prospect and then they loop in, you know, like 3 of their team members, and now they're all on the email thread, and now like there's a new email thread spun up. So it was getting a lot to manage. So basically we just built out this automation that keeps a ground truth on your deal pipeline. So and like we pattern match by company name and by prospect name and like by a few other things to make sure it's you know, one-to-one there. So I would highly recommend this if you have multiple deals going on. Then I would also highly recommend this automation as well. Saved me personally a ton of time. Yeah. So then phase 3 is closing. So the proving ROI, proving demo, always varies by client, varies by industry, varies by prospect, company size. I think in the insurance company, again, it was like 9 or 11 weeks or something. We are in one right now that's been going on for like 4 months, and is probably going to keep going on. So we'll see if that one, you know, ever closes. Either close one or close lost. Like we'll see. Some of them are way shorter. But so yeah, after that phase, basically final phase here is actually closing the deal. So sealing it really with pricing. And most of the time on the closing call, like if the prospect is hopping on a closing call, again, like if you're following this framework, we've reviewed a proposal together, we've built them a tailored demo that has proven ROI for their workflow. Like these guys are ready to sign. And if they're not ready to sign at that point, they were basically just sandbagging the entire sales process, like just trying to get a quote or just trying to get information. Which obviously like a lot of prospects do that. So yeah, I won't spend too much time here because like the whole like point of this sales methodology is that there really is no closing call. It's like you close them, which with each step of the sale, they're like more and more ready to go. Sometimes there'll be like a final, you know, budget objection, obviously, right? So pretty standard there. Like just try to kind of you know, listen to what they have to say, map it back to value, and get them going. After we close the deal, we have a few automations as well. So I'm still manually reviewing every contract that goes out. So we're not like auto sending contracts yet. We probably will eventually. But right now I'm still, you know, read every word in the contract before it goes out. And then the automations that happen is as soon as the customer signs and our contract signed, and payment infrastructure is all integrated in one. So we use PandaDoc and QuickBooks. So we send over the contract with PandaDoc. As soon as they sign, you know, the QuickBooks thing is right there. It's like one pretty easy experience. So they sign, they make the payment. We then have an automation in the back end. As soon as we receive the signed contract, we spin up their client portal and we do some initial task delegation based on the contract. So like, again, at this point, our engineering team has already been looped in. And we have like a very clear scope of work. So we'll do like initial like AI PM, essentially. We'll delineate some tasks for human in the loop review by our actual PM. And then now we're in delivery, fulfillment, and retainment, right? So this was, I think, like the major focus of the second call. So again, won't spend a lot of time here, but we have that kickoff call, like I just said, after we spin up the client portal, where we're setting up the sprints, you know, making sure that the client knows like when they can expect different deliverables. Sometimes we'll do weekly stand-ups, sometimes bi-weekly stand-ups. Again, really focused on high quality engineering, always sharing demos and POCs early. The earlier the client can use the system and get you feedback, always is the better. And then to, you know, kind of reduce that tech debt, always kind of having in mind that we're keeping documentation and ready to train the client basically at any point. So yeah, so final tips to scale an AI business. Like Nate said, starting with SMBs in a particular niche, we don't do that just because we have the leverage of the channel. But for anyone who doesn't, building wins with smaller businesses and very specific functionality is going to help you a lot in the sales process, and is going to help you close more deals, be more confident on calls with prospects, and then before targeting enterprises is probably a good move. Mastering these tools, right? So like N8N obviously is, I think we're going to continue to use it moving forward. The founders are great, and they've honestly, it's like overall great company. So probably we'll keep using N8N, and then just keep grinding. It's tough, but everyone can definitely get there. So yeah, that's it on my motivational spiel. That was all that I had for the slides. So definitely happy to open it up for Q&A.
Really appreciate all the questions. Really appreciate this whole workshop. It was a 3-part workshop, and it was kind of the first one we had really done, diving into some of the TrueHorizon stuff. And it was really cool, and it was really successful. And if you guys really liked it, then we'll definitely look to be bringing more of these kind of workshops like these and do some deeper dives. So really appreciate the questions, appreciate all the participation. And of course, this call and the previous two they're already in the community, but I'll drop this one in the community as well. So thanks so much, guys, and take care. Have a great rest of your weeks.